In the quiet farming town of Moyhu, tucked in northeast Victoria, Australia, a 47-year-old man violently lost his life by the very animal he raised, nurtured, and trusted for years. It wasn't a predator. It wasn't a wild beast that escaped from the bush. It was his pet, an enormous red deer hybrid that turned on him without warning. What caused a seemingly calm animal to explode in sudden deadly rage? And could this tragic event have been prevented? This is the shocking final story of Paul McDonald, an experienced deer owner whose quiet rural life ended in a scene too brutal for belief. Before we start, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our true wildlife stories. And now, welcome to Animal Quest channel, where real encounters meet untamed nature. Paul McDonald was 47 years old, a father, a husband, and a man deeply connected to the land. He lived in the rural town of Moyhu, nestled in the scenic King Valley region of northeastern Victoria, Australia, a place known for its rolling farmland, vineyards, and wide-open skies, the kind of place where people know their neighbors, where tractors share the road with kangaroos, and where life moves to the rhythm of the seasons. To those who knew him, Paul was calm, generous, and down to earth. He had lived on his property for years with his wife, Mandy Macdonald, and their teenage son. The family was private but well regarded in the community. Locals described Paul as someone who never made a fuss, who worked hard and minded his own business. But what set Paul apart was his unusual passion. While others raised cattle or sheep, Paul chose to care for something far less conventional. A male red deer, reportedly a hybrid with elk or wapiti, a towering antlered animal that he had raised since it was young. For over 6 years, the Macdonalds kept the animal on their property in a fenced enclosure. It wasn't a zoo or a wildlife park. This was a family farm, a place of trust, routine, and familiarity. To Paul, this animal wasn't just livestock, it was something closer. It had been with the family for years, fed daily, monitored, watched as it grew from a cautious young stag into a massive, muscular adult buck. It's not clear if the deer had a name, but what is clear is that Paul trusted it deeply. He believed it was safe, but behind that trust was something dangerous, a fundamental truth about wild animals. No matter how long they've been raised in captivity, no matter how familiar they become, their instincts don't go away. Not with time, not with care, and certainly not with love. Paul's story raises a shocking question. Would you ever raise a wild animal as a pet? Let us know in the comments, because for Paul McDonald, that decision, whether made out of curiosity, love, or simple admiration for the animal, would ultimately lead to a devastating end. And as we'll see, the warning signs were already there. Quiet, subtle, lurking just beneath the surface. The animal Paul McDonald raised was no ordinary deer. It was a hybrid between a red deer and a wapiti, also known as elk, a towering species native to North America, known for its strength, aggression, and massive antlers that can span over 4 feet wide. Crossbreeding red deer and elk is not uncommon in farming circles, often done for their impressive size and meat yield. But that size comes with risk, especially during one dangerous time of year. Rut season, the annual breeding period for male deer and elk, when their testosterone surges and their behavior becomes erratic, aggressive, and at times violent. Experts across Australia have long warned, even captive raised deer can become deadly during rut. These are not domesticated animals. They are not cows or horses or even dogs. They do not bond with humans in the way we might hope. And the moment the hormonal shift begins, instinct takes over. According to wildlife biologists, males during rut become intensely territorial, often attacking anything they perceive as a rival or a threat. Other animals, objects, even humans. Paul McDonald's deer was likely well over 200 kilograms, close to 450 pounds, with a thick winter coat, hooves that could crush bone, and a set of hard-pointed antlers designed by nature for one purpose: combat. Most farms that house such animals follow strict precautions during rut. Limited contact, barriers, isolation. But Paul didn't own a farm with industrial fencing or commercial safety protocols. What he had was a basic enclosure on their rural property, secured with standard fencing, strong enough for normal conditions, but maybe not strong enough for a 450-pound wild animal in full hormonal rage. Still, Paul had raised the deer for 6 years. He believed it trusted him. He had walked into that enclosure hundreds of times before. It was routine. But that's the danger with routine. It blinds us to the shift. A look that lasts a second too long. A breath held a little tighter. The way an animal turns its body slightly toward you instead of away. Signs that, for trained handlers, scream warning. But for someone like Paul, a man who genuinely cared for this animal, it may have been easy to miss. It wasn't just a pet, it was a time bomb, and no one saw it ticking. It was Wednesday morning, April 17th, 2019, just after sunrise. The town of Moyhu was waking up slowly, bathed in the pale gold light of early autumn. On his rural property, Paul McDonald stepped outside, coffee likely in hand, boots crunching the dew-covered grass beneath him. It was a routine morning, one he'd repeated hundreds of times. Feed the animals, check the fencing, tend to the land. He walked down toward the enclosure where the red deer-elk hybrid waited. To Paul, this wasn't just a job, it was a rhythm, predictable, familiar. He knew the deer's moods, or at least he thought he did. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that on this day the animal had changed. The rutting season was in full force. The deer's testosterone had surged, and something deep in its brain, some ancient primal reflex, had taken control. As Paul entered the pen, the deer didn't hesitate. There was no warning growl, no nervous pacing, just sudden explosive violence. It charged. In seconds, Paul was on the ground, helpless. The deer rammed into him with its massive antlers, then rose on its hind legs and came down hard, again and again. Hooves the size of dinner plates crushed into Paul's chest and head, and sharp antler points punctured his body repeatedly. The attack wasn't random. It was focused, brutal, instinctive. The animal was treating him as a threat or a rival, and it wasn't going to stop. Macdonald, Paul's wife, heard the noise. Maybe it was a yell or the sound of something crashing. She was nearby, on the property, possibly walking toward the pen. And when she saw what was happening, she didn't hesitate. She ran straight into the enclosure, straight toward the beast. But it saw her too. The deer turned its rage on her, slamming her to the ground. Antlers came down again, this time into her back and legs. She screamed, trying to crawl away as the animal reared up again. And then, a second figure appeared. Their teenage son, witnessing the unthinkable, ran toward the chaos. With no weapon, no protection, just raw desperation, he grabbed the first thing he could, a stick, and with that stick, he fought. He swung at the deer, he shouted. He threw his own body between his parents and the animal. It worked, at least for a moment. The deer hesitated, stepped back. The boy used that moment to grab his mother, drag her out of the enclosure, and call for help. Emergency services were dispatched quickly. Paramedics and police arrived at the scene on Upper Ryans Creek Road just outside Moyhu. But it was too late for Paul. He died at the scene from his injuries. Mandy was airlifted to Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, suffering from serious wounds to her upper body and legs. Her son, though injured and shaken, survived. What began as a peaceful morning turned into a nightmare in under 5 minutes. A routine chore, a family moment, ripped apart by a creature they thought they knew. And yet the warning signs had been there all along. Within minutes of the attack, emergency services were on site at the Macdonald property on Upper Ryans Creek Road, near Moyhu. Paramedics, police officers, and a medical helicopter crew arrived amid the tense and chaotic scene. But despite their rapid response and desperate efforts, Paul McDonald was pronounced dead at the scene. The severity of his injuries was overwhelming. Multiple deep puncture wounds, severe trauma caused by the animal's powerful antlers and hooves. His wife, Mandy McDonald, was rushed by air ambulance to the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. She was in critical condition, battling injuries that included broken bones and deep lacerations. Her survival was a testament to both her strength and the quick action of her son, who had fought off the animal and summoned help. Law enforcement officers made a difficult but necessary decision. For the safety of the family and the community, the red deer-elk hybrid was euthanized on the property. The animal's aggressive behavior during rutting season had proven too dangerous. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the small town of Moyhu and beyond. Local residents struggled to comprehend how such a loving family could be torn apart by an animal they cared for deeply. The story quickly spread, drawing national and international media attention. A spokesperson for Victoria Police stated in the days following the attack, "The animal was in rutting season and displayed aggressive mating behavior. This tragic incident highlights the dangers of keeping wild animals, even those raised in captivity." Wildlife experts echoed the warning, emphasizing the unpredictable nature of hybrid animals, especially during their breeding season, and the importance of proper management and safety protocols. The Macdonald family's devastating loss became a grim reminder. Sometimes the wildness inside an animal cannot be tamed, no matter how much love and care it receives. Why did this happen? Let me explain. April in Victoria marks a critical time in the animal calendar. For male red deer and wapiti, commonly known as elk, this is rutting season. It's a time when nature's instinct takes over completely. During this period, testosterone levels in males skyrocket, transforming even the most docile animals into aggressive, territorial warriors. Their focus narrows, zeroing in on anything that could challenge their dominance, including humans who have cared for them for years. Experts explain that the hormonal surge triggers unpredictable behavior, charging, striking, and defending territory at all costs. And while Paul McDonald's red deer-elk hybrid had been raised in captivity, the wild instincts embedded deep within its DNA could never be fully erased. Compounding the danger is the fact that in parts of Australia, keeping large and exotic hybrid animals is not strictly regulated like traditional pets. Unlike dogs or cats, there are fewer rules about containment, training, or vet checks for hybrids like Paul's animal. Wildlife behaviorists reviewing the case have been clear. This tragedy was not a freak accident. It was, in fact, entirely predictable given the animal's natural cycle and the risks inherent in keeping such a creature on a rural property without specialized facilities. As one expert put it, during rutting, these animals are simply not safe to be around, even if they seem tame the rest of the year. The Macdonald family's heartbreaking fate underscores a vital lesson. Some animals, no matter how much love they receive, remain wild, and their nature can erupt with deadly consequences. Australia has a long and complicated history with exotic pets. From camels wandering the outback to venomous snakes kept in suburban homes, incidents of attacks have occurred across the country. Deer and other large wild animals are no exception. While they may appear calm and familiar, experts warn that their wild instincts never fully disappear, no matter how much they are raised around humans. Wildlife authorities emphasize that taming is not the same as domesticating, and that wild animals, especially hybrids, can revert to dangerous behavior without warning. Paul McDonald's tragic death has become a reference point in Victoria's ongoing discussions about animal control laws and public safety. A safety advisory from the Victoria Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning clearly states, "We urge the public not to domesticate wild animals, no matter how safe they appear. The risks are real and the consequences can be fatal." Could stronger regulations, better education, or different choices have saved Paul? The answer weighs heavily on every pet owner who dares to keep the wild within their home. Paul McDonald was a man defined by his love for animals and the rural life he cherished. For over 6 years, he cared for a creature that was both majestic and wild, a red deer-elk hybrid that had been part of his family's world. But on that fateful day in April 2019, that bond was shattered forever. Nature's untamable instincts erupted in a brutal attack that took Paul's life in the quiet fields near Moyhu, Victoria. His wife, Mandy McDonald, survived, but will carry both the physical and emotional scars of that day for the rest of her life. Their teenage son, who bravely intervened, witnessed a tragedy that no family should endure. This story stands as a solemn reminder. Nature has boundaries, lines that when crossed come with consequences we cannot undo. He trusted the animal for 6 years, but in one terrifying moment, it turned into a killer. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more true and gripping animal encounter documentaries. We want to hear from you. Have you ever had a close call with a wild animal? Share your story below. Thank you for watching and stay safe out there.